Let's talk about the waiver wire pickups and stashes for week 4. First off, wow, Miami put on a show yesterday, so it should be no surprise that Devin Achane is our top pickup for this week. He's rostered in about 42% of leagues. He's coming off a game where he had 18 carries for 203 yards and had 4 total touchdowns. He was more efficient than Raheem Mostert and has definitely solidified his role in this running back room. I would pump the brakes a little bit. Let's not forget that Savon Ahmed was out yesterday, and Jeff Wilson comes off of IR after week 4. So this is going to be a pretty crowded running back room. Not to mention, Raheem Mostert had 4 touchdowns of his own yesterday, and he's still likely to be the top dog in this backfield. So while Achane had a great game, I wouldn't expect him to duplicate this type of performance. He's still definitely worth picking up, and he's going to be getting plenty of touches, both in the air and on the ground. So I wouldn't expect him to not have a prominent role, but at the same time, I do think expectations should be tempered. They're going up against the Bills this week, and I think they're going to have a much tougher time scoring this many points. This game should be a lot closer. The Bills look really good last week, and Miami, while they are a very potent offense, should definitely look more down to earth. Next up, Tank Dell. Dell was on my pickup list last week, and he's still only rostered in about 32% of leagues. Over the last 2 games, he's had 12 catches for 217 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he's quickly moving up the pecking order. He might actually be CJ Stroud's favorite receiving option. I would imagine, just based on how he's looked, that he's going to continue to eat into both Nico Collins and Robert Woods' target share. Right now, the Texans are exceeding a lot of expectations, and I think as long as Stroud minimizes his interceptions, then Dell should still have a great chance to produce. The Texans should still be in a lot of negative game scripts and should be chasing points. And they're going up against a Steeler team that has given up the 9th most passing yards this year and just got torched by Devontae Adams for 13 catches, 172 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So I think Dell is in a great spot this week, and he should continue to produce. Pick him up if you need a low-end WR2 with upside. Now let's address the Mike Williams situation. Unfortunately for Williams, he did tear his ACL and will miss the remainder of the year. He had an 84% snap share over his first 3 games, and that's going to have to be distributed. The biggest beneficiary should be Josh Palmer. Palmer put up a 4 reception, 66-yard, and 1 touchdown performance yesterday, and he's averaged right around a 60% snap share over the first 3 games. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the guy opposite Keenan Allen to start things off. He's only 4% rostered, so if you're looking for a WR3 with WR2 upside, I think Palmer is a great target. The other person to target is Quentin Johnston. Johnston is a first-round pick out of TCU, and there were pretty high expectations for him coming into this year. While he's had a slow start, he really hasn't been on the field very much to prove what he can do. He's only had a 22% snap share, but just given his size and how identical he is in build to Mike Williams, I wouldn't be surprised to see his snap share increase pretty substantially. He's 6'4", 215. Williams is 6'4", 218, so he should step right into that field stretcher role. And with the way Justin Herbert likes to take chances downfield, it would not be shocking to see him put up pretty similar numbers to Williams as the season goes on. He's rostered a bit more at 32% because I think folks had pretty high expectations for him coming into this year, but I think that number is going to steadily increase as the season goes on. I would definitely grab him as a wait-and-see player, but I think even as soon as this week, we should see him make a splash. Now let's talk about the impact to the tight ends. First off, Gerald Everett. Gerald Everett's been kind of a letdown this year. He's rostered in about 31% of leagues, and I think based on how he did last year, people had pretty decent expectations for him this year. I think he will get things going, just given how many 2 tight end sets the Chargers run. So he's never going to be phased out completely, but the Chargers like to get all their tight ends involved. Donald Parham's actually been the guy to own this year. He already has 3 touchdowns, and at 6'8", Herbert definitely likes to look his way in the red zone. And I don't see that changing as long as Parham can stay healthy. They've also gotten Stone Smart involved pretty decently. So this may be a little bit of a muddy tight end situation, which is rare given how ugly the position is. But like I mentioned, given how many 2 tight end sets they run, I think Everett and Parham should maintain value and both should see an uptick in their production. Parham's only rostered in 1% of leagues, and I think he's a better pickup in standard leagues just because of his touchdown upside, and Everett's probably a better pickup in PPR leagues if he's available. Next, DJ Chark. DJ Chark had a breakout game yesterday, catching 4 receptions for 86 yards and 1 touchdown. He's only rostered in 10% of leagues, so he should be pretty widely available. Now, I should mention there were a lot of factors that went his way yesterday. For one, Bryce Young was out, and he had Andy Dalton throwing him the ball, who's a bit more experienced at this stage of his career. And also, Jonathan Mingo left the game with a concussion. So he definitely had more targets available to him, and I'm not sure if that'll be the case moving forward. A lot of his value in the immediate future will be contingent on whether Mingo can play and if Bryce Young comes back next week. But either way, I think he definitely showed enough to be picked up. And as the season goes on, his role should only grow. I think Adam Thielen's performance was kind of an outlier, and I don't think he's going to be able to replicate that more than a couple times this year. And the Panthers are going to be in a lot of negative game scripts and have not shown an ability to stay in games at this point. Chark should be the one guy that should carve out a decent role, especially downfield. So if you're looking for a WR3 with low-end WR2 upside, he's someone to consider. Additionally, for this week, Chark's also really worth giving consideration because he's going up against a Minnesota team that just gave up 25 catches and 336 yards to the duo of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams this past week. So I think he's in another great spot. Beyond that, you may have to take him week to week. He may be more of a streamer at this point, but I would definitely grab him if you're looking for someone to put at the end of your bench. Next up, CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud's only rostered in 20% of leagues, and I think his arrow's pointing up. He's looked pretty good for a rookie. He's never thrown less than 242 yards and boasts a 4-0 touchdown to interception ratio. He has had 3 fumbles, losing 2 of them. So if he can clean that up, I think he has a great chance to improve his numbers even more. But at this point, with the Texans chasing points, he's worth taking a chance on if you're looking for a low-end quarterback streamer. I think he's going to be able to put up a lot of passing yards this year. If he can minimize the fumbles and keep the interceptions as low as he has, then he should have a great chance to continue to produce. He's going to be in a lot of negative game scripts, and I think this week is a great week to use him if you're looking for a streamer. He's going up against the Steelers, like I mentioned, who have given up the 9th most passing yards. Next, Luke Musgrave. Musgrave's only rostered in 18% of leagues and seems to have a lock on the tight end 1 duties in Green Bay. He's had an 83% snap share over the first 3 games, and he's caught 11 of 15 targets. He led all Packers pass catchers last week with 6 receptions for 49 yards, and likely would have had an even bigger day if Jordan Love didn't miss him on a seam route where he was wide open. I think with the way Green Bay has struggled with injury so far with Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, that Musgrave should have a pretty stable role, especially given his snap share. He doesn't really have much competition, and I think they drafted him this year pretty high for a reason. Now let's talk about some stashes. First up, Jeff Wilson Jr. Jeff Wilson Jr. has been on IR to start the year due to a ribs issue and a finger issue, but he's only rostered in 25% of leagues. And I think when he comes back in week 5, he should have an immediate role. I know right now the backfield's kind of muddied with Mostert, Ahmed, and A-Chain, so he may start off slow, but he looked really good last year. And if any of these guys were to miss time, he would have a pretty sizable role. I think given his rapport with Mike McDaniels from San Francisco, they're still going to find a way to get him touches. Maybe 6 to 8 to begin, but if he shows that he still has a good ability to get downfield, that could increase pretty steadily. At this point, with how potent Miami's offense is, I'm sure they'll find a way to feed all of their playmakers. Next, Rico Dowdle. Dowdle's only rostered in 3% of leagues. He had 4 rushes for 25 yards and a touchdown, and also had 3 receptions for 25 yards yesterday. That was his first touchdown, and I don't expect his role to grow too much while Tony Pollard is healthy, but he's an elite handcuff. If Pollard were to ever miss time, Dowdle is the guy to own. Right now, Dowdle's gotten about 6 to 8 touches per game. It should probably remain right around there for the foreseeable future, but if Dallas can somehow get everything together and get back to being a potent offense, then I'm sure he'll be able to come in for cleanup duties. Dowdle's worth stashing on your bench is more of a handcuff, but I don't think he has any standalone value at this point. Next up, Elijah Mitchell. Mitchell's rostered already in 39% of leagues, and I think a lot of that is due to the fact that people had some decent expectations for him coming into this year. But I think with the way Christian McCaffrey has played, there hasn't been much opportunity to go around. I do think that will change just given how soft the 49ers schedule is this year. And even this last week, Mitchell got into the game and had 11 rushes for 42 yards and also had 3 receptions. So I would think as long as the 49ers are able to gain a stable lead, they're going to find ways to get McCaffrey a breather, which should only benefit Mitchell. Mitchell should definitely get more touches as the season goes on. It might be a bit erratic, so he's a little bit more of a bench stash at this point. But I think if he's able to stay healthy, he could carve out standalone value, especially as we get deeper into the season and the 49ers try to protect McCaffrey going into the playoffs. Lastly, Jerick McKinnon. McKinnon's already rostered in 47% of leagues, and I think a lot of that is due to how well he did last year. He's fresh off of a 2 TD receiving performance, but I don't see that being sustainable. At this point, he's more of a third down / red zone specialist, and he's definitely not startable. As we saw yesterday, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Isaiah Pacheco pretty much dominated all the work on the ground. And I think McKinnon's only had 3 rushes this year and 7 receptions, so his involvement is really not that heavy. He's only had a 31% snap share, so if you do pick him up, he's more of an end-of-the-bench stash. If Pacheco or Allaire were to miss any time, that would definitely change things, but I don't think you can rely on him for week-to-week value. Those are my waiver wire pickups and stashes for week 4. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe and let me know who you think we should pick up in the comments below.